Final feelings here before Texas and Georgia line up in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the 2024 Southeastern Conference Championship game. Really, this game's a little bit different than it's been in the past. This was such an important game, maybe the second most important game in college football that season. We can't say that now. That's not what's going on anymore, and so there will be a different feel to this game in terms of the way people react to it. I think that both these schools would, if someone scores 30 points, they probably won this game. I mean, Georgia's offense is probably better than Texas's, you know, but I don't know by how much. And, both these defenses are really good and have shown, not just lately, but through the bulk of the season, both these teams have played really good defense. They played really good defense against one another in Austin. I think for Georgia specifically, the big guys are going to have to come play in this game. I think when you look at Georgia's chances to win this game, this is about a coin flip game. It's hard to say who will really win the game. But if the big guys up front don't play well, it's going to be tough to expect Georgia to win this game. If the big guys at Texas don't, it's going to be tough to expect to win this game if you're Texas. So I really don't know how Texas will react to the situation that they're in. This is going to be a game in Atlanta. It's going to be, I would imagine, a partisan crowd for Georgia. I don't know if Kelvin Banks, the offensive lineman for Texas, their best offensive lineman, is going to play. He's listed as questionable. Etienne, Branson Robinson, Chauncey Bowens, those three running backs are listed as questionable for Georgia. Christian Miller, he's listed as questionable for Georgia. There's a lot of injuries for both teams at really important spots. For Georgia, it feels like they've been playing better lately, to be honest with you. I mean, with the exception of, some of these starts to games, Georgia's really played well a lot of the season, actually. I mean, you think about the Clemson game, slow start. Slow start is in relative terms offensively here. Alabama, Clemson, Kentucky, Florida, Georgia Tech, Tennessee. A lot of the games, Georgia's offense specifically, at Texas to some degree, not really as much with Texas, but in those games, Georgia's not been hot out of the gate. It's not been abnormal to see them go down 3-0 or go down 7-0. This Georgia team has trailed a lot this season. I saw statistics. I don't know who wrote it. I think it was somebody from ESPN talking about how this Georgia team has trailed more than the 2 or 3 previous teams combined, or at least 21 and 22. So this is a Georgia team that kind of has a real hard time with success at the beginning of games. The conclusion of games, they're really good at that, actually. I mean, you take away the Alabama loss, they have stormed past Clemson. They stormed past Kentucky, if you want to call it that. Certainly did that to Tennessee, did that to Georgia Tech. They have the capability of exploding on offense in the second half. And it may be that they are, maybe that this Georgia team just needs a little bit of time to get going. But I have to say that that's not going to work from here on out. And we're at a moment with Georgia here where they really do need to start playing their best football. And I don't know if they are right now. I mean, I don't think they're playing their worst football. I think there was a time when Georgia was not playing so great. And we're not at that moment anymore. They're definitely playing pretty well, but I think last week with Tech really freaked people out. They could have lost that game. In many ways, they should have lost that game, but they didn't. And if they had lost that game, we'd be talking about this in a very different situation than we are right now. We can't say that. I do think folks at Georgia that I know and have talked to, they completely expect Arch Manning to get in there against them this week. I think Texas is still trying to figure things out offensively. I know that sounds crazy, but if you look, it sounds crazy, but I don't know if you take a step back and look at where Texas is really at. I don't really know that you can, that can't be that sort of controversial of a statement. I mean, they have not. There have been times when they've just not played as hot as they could. The Florida game notwithstanding, Texas has not scored more than 30 points. I don't know why the SEC site doesn't just have everybody's data on there immediately. That's a frustrating thing to go through, but nonetheless, I think when you look at Texas and you see kind of the season they've had, the Florida game is an outlier right now. I mean, against Georgia, they scored 15. Against Vandy, they scored 27. Florida, 49. Against Arkansas, 20. Against Kentucky, 31. There's nothing wrong with scoring 31 in the SEC. And then 17 against Texas A&M. I mean, you want to figure out why Georgia wins this game? They basically stop Texas. That's what you're asking for or looking for. And I don't think that's too much to ask. I mean, I don't know if this is going to be a road game for Texas or not, but it's going to be approaching a road game. And this will be a situation that they've not dealt with yet. They've really not gone on the road in the SEC in a way that they've done that once, which was at A&M. Arkansas, yeah, that too. But when your road games are a neutral site in Dallas and Nashville, that's half your road games in this league. That's not playing at Neyland. That's not playing at Tiger Stadium or Death Valley. That's not playing at Tennessee. Well, I just said Tennessee. That's not playing at Samford. That's not playing at Alabama. They'll get more of that next year. For instance, next year, Texas will play at Georgia. They will play at the Swamp. I mean, that's going to be a trickier situation, but that too, they go to Starkville just like Georgia, and that's not a tough place to play. It's not. And that's okay. It's what it is. But that's why I wonder, the tickets for this game, they're not really, there's not a lot. I mean, they're not super expensive like I've seen in the past. So it makes me wonder, are the Texas people just not coming to this game? Or, the Georgia side is slightly more expensive than the Texas side, maybe about $50 a ticket. Maybe that's not slightly. That's probably a little bit more. I'd say it's sort of solidly more in the upper deck that Georgia has more expensive tickets. In the lower deck, the Texas folks are hanging in there pretty well. I don't think there's any issue with Texas and paying for tickets. But once you get into the upper deck, you're seeing tickets on the Georgia side that are costing $100 more than the Texas side. I mean, it's. I would say the upper deck is going to be almost all Georgia folks. That's what it seems like. And once you start talking like that, then you're looking at an LSU Georgia situation like when the two schools play in Atlanta, and it's really one-sided for Georgia. What will that mean? Well, if it's a road game, that'll make it complicated for Texas. Now, again, we don't know. Sark was talking about how this is a road game for Texas. I mean, you don't have 7,000 people at a road game, though. So there's that. But I think in both cases, in all cases, Wisner's gotten rolling on the ground a little bit for Texas lately. And, Texas A&M and Kentucky, they've got good run defense. I mean, most people in the league are good running the ball. Are good stopping the run. And we've seen here with Wisner, he's basically the last guy they have standing at running back. He has really picked up production these last 2 weeks. What does that mean? Are they going to do that to Georgia? There's only been a couple of games since October that, which was the Arkansas game and the Vanderbilt game, that they didn't have a 100-yard rusher, Texas. So they have started getting rolling on that front, but Michigan really, didn't allow a massive one runner. Georgia, it was even harder for Texas. So what's going to happen with Quinn Ewers? How healthy is the ankle? What's going to happen with Arch Manning? I know Georgia is very aware of what he can do, and he really can run, okay? But is it possible this game is going to be, not dissimilar from the games that the game that we saw in Austin. Um, I don't know. This is not an exhibition. That'd be the wrong way to put it. Um, but it's not the same at all as it's been in the past. And let's not act like it was. I mean, a year ago, if say Texas had come into this game and lost it, they would not be in the 14 playoffs. Same thing with Georgia. Right now, Texas is the betting favorite with Oregon to win the national championship. Ohio State and Georgia right there with the two of them, but behind them at 350, which was what Georgia was coming into this season. The Tech game has really shaken the betting market. But again, the betting market a lot of times is full of, kind of reactionary people. And that's, that's their prerogative. That's up to them. But if you look at the odds for who is going to be stacked where for the college football playoff, it's about even odds that Georgia or Texas would be the number 2 seed. So this is a coin flip game. I mean, and there's no reason to say I firmly believe this team will win. There's a reason. You can say that if you believe it, but it's hard for me to say, oh, this team should obviously win the game. It's the same thing. I don't know this weekend if there's an obvious, winner or expected winner in any of these games. I think Oregon is the closest we get to that, and they're only a 3.5 point favorite. Like, that's not much. That means you probably should win. But like, you look at Boise, they're a 4 point favorite at home. Like, that's not saying a lot. Texas is favored by 2.5. Arizona State is favored by 2. Oregon's favored by 3.5. Southern Methodist only favored by 2. I mean, these are not really big numbers. And so we can have some serious confusion after this thing. If Penn State beats Oregon, if Georgia beats Texas, if UNLV beats Boise, I don't think Iowa State and Iowa, but it's really if Clemson wins, Penn State wins, and Georgia wins, which sweeping all three, and Boise loses, sweeping all of those would be strange. But assuming the favorite would win all 4 is an incorrect way to be about it. In fact, the favorite in the Saturday championship games, the favorite should only win 2 of these 3, if it's even 2. It would not at all be strange for all 3 favorites to lose. I mean, not at all. And I don't know what the atmosphere is going to be like in Indianapolis or Charlotte, for the record. I mean, that's not that far from Clemson. So, and it's a long way from Dallas. So to predict or know or see or whatever, we can't know a lot of this stuff. I will say it's got to be embarrassing for the Big Ten to have ticket prices at half the level of the ACC and lower than the Big 12. I mean, that's really embarrassing for the Big Ten. For all their chest thumping, that's an embarrassing look, guys. I mean, I think if Texas were playing Texas A&M in Atlanta, the tickets wouldn't be super high, but they wouldn't be $22 or $12. That's embarrassing. That's a bad look for those schools. But Carson Beck, I think, can play better than he did in Austin. Carson Beck has played better. But this is going to be only and probably exclusively, this is probably going to be very much the men in the middle. So the Tate Ratledge, Jared Wilson, that group. If Drew Bobo's getting in there, he's going to have to fight it out. It's that group. Trust got to not get penalties. He that happens with him sometimes. Morris, Fairchild, Ratledge. Is Green going to play? Freeling. All of this group. They're going to have to, at least hold their own. They're going to have to at least get 100 yards rushing. That is really, I don't know anything at all in terms of what I'm about to say. I will believe Etienne playing when I see it. I think that he didn't even dress for warm-ups last week. He's listed as questionable. I would say extremely questionable, but they list him at questionable, so maybe he'll play. I mean, he's not played a game since the Ole Miss game, but he's not played a full game since the Texas game. Like, he didn't play the whole way against the Gators. He didn't play the whole way against Ole Miss. And then obviously he missed Tennessee, UMass, and Tech. So he's missed 3 games in a row. And even if he is, going out there, he's not played in a month. So how are you really expecting him to go in there and slash and burn and all this? And it's not going to – that's hard for me to imagine happening. So it's going to be, Dwight Phillips Jr. It's going to be Nate Frazier, Cash Jones, Dwight Phillips Jr. It's going to be I would think Branson or Roderick Robinson. That Georgia's got running backs. It's not that they don't have them; they're just not healthy. So we've seen Dwight do. I mean, I played with Dwight Phillips' father, so it's hard for me to not say just his first name. But it's hard, with Phillips, we've seen him play more. Not a lot more, but we've seen him play more over the season. And so are you going to see a little bit more of that? Are there 3 plays where he's in there and twice he gets the ball, something like that? Yeah, it may well be that happens. So you got 70 to 80 plays. What are your 70 plays that you really want to run here? And defensively, it's go time for Mikal Williams for sure. It's go time. Like I want to see a game here soon where he jumps off the screen. Jalen Walker's had a good season, but he's not had a game like Texas since. And there kind of no. I mean, it's hard to have a game like that. So you want to see guys. The steadiness of Chaz Chambliss. Can everybody have that steadiness this week? The linebackers are going to have to play well. If you get Arch in there, the guy can really run. And so there's all sorts of booby traps. And Sark is just such a good coordinator. I mean, as good as Kirby is, Sark is in that same universe or better as a play caller on the offensive side of the ball. And so that's the big thing with this game is you have 2 really exceptional craftsmen at that particular thing, and they're really good at it, which is Sark on offense and Kirby on defense. Who's going to perform? Who's going to, as they call it, execute? Georgia didn't execute great on offense against Texas last time. It was okay, but it wasn't anything unbelievable. That game could have been a total blowout. If Georgia executed even a little bit better on offense. It wasn't a total blowout. It was a pretty solid beating, and people say, well, it's hard to beat the same team twice. I mean, not if you're better than they are. I mean, I don't know why some of that's just because you're playing a game and you could lose a game. Some of it's because, you get some, but the staff at Texas is not better or worse than the staff at Georgia. I mean, they're both really good staffs, really good teams. Both these teams are loaded up. They got guys. This isn't a first-year staff like Alabama's had, and you've seen the ups and downs in Alabama. This is a Texas staff that's been around for a while. Sark is I'm just saying, Sark is a really good coach, calling plays and doing all that. But the issue for Texas is going to be you're going into Atlanta. It's not the same as Athens, but it's going to be something similar to it. And, Georgia's been pretty good at Mercedes-Benz. People say, oh, well, not against Alabama. Well, they're not playing Alabama. And that's A. And then B, if they were playing Alabama this week, I'd pick Georgia. So, that's me. But I think this comes down to who is going to surge at the end of the year, who's going to play their best ball at the end of the year. And I will close with this. That you win or lose this game, I mean, it's good for your health, but it does not preclude or you from winning it, and it certainly doesn't hand you the trophy. That's not what we're at right now. That's not where we're at right now. We have, until the national championship game, we have a month and 2 weeks. We have all of Christmas to get through. We have New Year's, and then we got to get to MLK. That's how far we are from the national championship. That's not a short amount of time. It just got cold. It's going to be cold for a while before they crown a champion. And both these two are in very good position to do it. But I think, I think if you want to pick Georgia, I can create a path for you. If you want to pick Texas, which I did, here's why I picked Texas. Essentially because of the way Georgia played this past weekend. I know it's very reactionary and dumb, but I'm telling you the reason why. If you take the Tech game away, I probably would have picked Georgia, but they are just so inconsistent. It's hard for me to say I can be honest with my audience and say, oh, I'm not always going to pick Georgia. That's not what this place is. You want to do that? You go. There are plenty of people that are entertainers or showman people or do it from their basement and all that stuff. They're great. That's very entertaining. The point of this, I was going to say network. The point of this, our outlets, is that we are here to tell you the truth as we see it. So why take Texas? Because Georgia's not been consistent. Why take Georgia? Because Texas has been consistent. And what do I mean by that? They're not scoring a lot of points, Texas. I mean, if you want to hate on Texas or not pick them or whatever, or people disrespect, there's no disrespect in this game. Like if someone's going to talk about how someone's picking someone else, like you kind of got to get over that. This is a coin flip game. You have to pick someone. If you want to pick Georgia to win this game, I think there are plenty of reasons to do so. First of all, just look at the way the last time they played. I mean, Georgia and LSU in 2003, that was a tight game in Baton Rouge. I mean, I don't know that Georgia should have won that game, but they tied it up late, and then you had the Skylar Thornton play. That was a very loud pop. They killed Georgia in Atlanta. Like, LSU had gotten better. Is Georgia better than they were at that point in middle of the season? You definitely could make the argument that they are. Is Texas better? It seems like Texas is better, but again, the path they've taken has not been the most challenging one. And the Florida team they played was not the same team that played Florida. I don't think Lagway even played in that game. So, and of course, he didn't play in plenty of Georgia's game. Florida played better against Georgia than they did at Texas. Yeah, I mean, 2 interceptions from Warner. Texas just jumped them, and it was kind of over. They were up 14-0 and then 21-0. And Florida, it wasn't the same for them at all. They had, I think, 230 yards, or it wasn't a lot of yardage for Texas, for the Gators. So but you can't, there's not. You can't say, oh, well, they beat them by this, and therefore this will happen. We don't know that. But Texas, they didn't play great against Vanderbilt. They didn't. They didn't play great against Arkansas. I think they played okay against Kentucky. I think they played okay against A&M. But for the most part, they've been the better team, and they've won. I don't know if they're the better team over Georgia. I mean, Oklahoma's terrible. Mississippi State's terrible. They had a hard time with State. They did not with Oklahoma. They had plenty of difficult time with Vanderbilt. The Arkansas game was way tighter than people are going to remember from that. Texas was up 10-0, and then all of a sudden, here comes Arkansas, making it very complicated for them. Very complicated for them in that game in the second half. So, I don't know. But this is a really good – both of these teams are really good. And they both have the ability to win this game. It really will probably just come down to who plays better. I mean, that's it. That's almost always how these games go, is who executes when you need to execute, what will happen on special teams, all sorts of stuff. That's what this will come down to. But when I leave the dome and I look at, and I will have the ability to digest things, and we'll know a lot of what's happened, not everything we'll know if Boise or UNLV's in, we'll know if if Georgia or Texas are the 2 seed. We'll know a lot of stuff. Right now, it's hard to know because this is such a coin flip game. So I think if you want to think either team is going to win, you're well within your right. but it will be maybe a little more challenging for Texas than I think people think. I'm not sure why it went from Georgia being a 1.5 favorite to Texas being a 2.5 favorite. Uh, I, I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. I'll tell you that right now. Thanks for watching.